I just gotta say that, regardless of who's directing or whatever, if you're into RVB because of the highly detailed continuity, you should be ready to be severely disappointed.
Hey, yeah? You ever wonder why we're here?
Red vs. Blue is an American comic science fiction web series created by Bernie Burns and produced by Rooster Teeth, a media and entertainment company that Burns co-founded alongside Matt Hullum, Joel Heyman, Gus Sorolla, and Jeff Ramsey. The first episode, entitled Why Are We Here?, premiered April 1st, 2003, nearly 8 months after the teaser trailer for the series was initially released. The initial plan for the series was to make a 6 to 8 episode parody of Bungie's extremely successful first-person shooter game, Halo Combat Evolved. But Red vs. Blue quickly became a cultural phenomenon, with the show expanding well beyond a single season due to its unprecedented popularity. As it stands right now, Red vs. Blue is the longest-running episodic web series of all time, with 18 seasons, 5 separate miniseries, and nearly 100 public service announcements released over the span of the show's 19-year run. Seasons 1 through 5 are compiled and marketed as the Blood Gulch Chronicles, 6 through 8 are known as the Recollection, 9 and 10 are the Project Freelancer Saga, 11 through 13 are dubbed the Chorus Trilogy, 15 through 17 are the Shizno Paradox, and Season 18 is named Red vs. Blue Zero, which is fitting because it offers nothing of substance. The fanbase's general consensus is that the show peaked with the Project Freelancer Saga, with many arguing that the series should have ended here. And I tend to agree with this conclusion despite my weirdly persistent nostalgia for the Chorus Trilogy. There's a noticeable decline in the show's writing quality after the end of Season 10, and this decline correlates with Bernie Burns stepping down as Red vs. Blue's head writer. The change was unexpected, especially since Burns had gone on record stating that he didn't think he could ever let anyone else write Red vs. Blue. But he decided the show should proceed without him manning the helm and appointed then-intern Miles Luna as his successor and the sole creative head of the show going forward. Luna wasn't completely unprepared for this mantle of responsibility. He helped co-write Season 10 and was the sole writer for the miniseries When There's a Will, There's a Wall, which can be viewed as his practice run at heading the show.
Help! I have no idea what I'm doing!
Now that you have mastered the art of liftoff, we will move on to the ladies.
On the other hand,
The Chorus Trilogy is a mixed bag of solid character interactions and shaky plot developments. Most of the arc's problems stem from Luna's insistence to use elements from previous seasons as narrative crutches, a flaw that is especially prominent in Season 13. He fishes the meta's armor out of a frozen sea, resurrects Sharkface, and throws Aiden Price into the mix just for the hell of it. But the character moments between the main cast members are good enough for these 3 seasons to escape my critical eye. Wash begins to acclimate to his newfound family, Tucker organically develops into a sufficient leader, and the members of Red Team, well, they still have nothing to do, but at least they're consistently funny.
get him! Ah!
Aim for the jugular!
Ow!
The jugular!
Ow!
Punch him in the goddamn throat!
Well, why didn't you just say so?
Luna ends the Chorus Trilogy on a fairly major cliffhanger. The Reds and Blues find themselves trapped inside of Malcolm Hargrove's trophy room, which is essentially just a shrine to better seasons of the show. Just as the blast doors open, we get one final goodbye from Church, who deconstructs and sacrifices himself in hopes that his efforts will help his friends survive. I'm sure this moment would have been really emotional if Church hadn't already died here. Or here. Or here. Lazarus ain't got nothing on Leonard Church. At the time of this finale's release, most fans assumed that this would be the show's definitive end. Despite the ensemble nature of the cast, Red vs. Blue is, at its core, Church's story. So why bother continuing the narrative without him? The most probable and cynical answer is money. Red vs. Blue is a recognizable, moderately successful IP, and when your company has limited avenues to churn a profit, you don't cancel a series that has a pre-existing audience and produces a steady flow of cash.
As Bernie has always said, as long as people like it, we will keep making it. Yep, so shut the fuck up.
And even once you hate it, even once you're totally fed up with it, and you're like, just stop, we'll still be there.
I'm gonna milk the shit out of it for every penny it's worth.
Oh, how I wish they were kidding. Each new season of Red vs. Blue redefines what rock bottom looks like. I personally don't think I'll ever forgive Rooster Teeth for producing an episode where Tucker and Sister fight a Cyclops with Gus Sorolla's face superimposed on it. Season 15 is by no means the worst season Red vs. Blue has to offer, but it's the season that interests me the most because it had real potential. Season 16 is horrible, but I had low expectations for it. Season 17 is functional to the point that it's extremely boring. And Season 18...
God damn it!
Whoa, are you okay?
I'm great!
Please don't get me started on Season 18.
It's in my ear! Oh!
But before I can delve into this deconstruction of Season 15, I actually need to start with Season 14.
What the hell was that?
I think it was a window?
Season 14 is unique in its presentation. Rather than continuing the main storyline, Red vs. Blue's crew decided to produce an anthology consisting of numerous short stories written by both in-house employees and outsiders to the production studio. It's serviceable. The vast majority of these episodes run the gambit of mediocrity, and none of them have any rewatch value. Like, I don't think anybody was begging Rooster Teeth to make a discount version of Reservoir Dogs.
That heist. It went so bad. And now I have been shot.
Miles Luna was still technically the show's head writer for Season 14, and I actually plan on doing a smaller video dedicated to analyzing a trilogy of episodes he wrote for it, because their failings reveal something really interesting about how he approaches storytelling. What you need to know for the sake of this video is that Miles was spread really thin at the time because he was also one of Ruby's head writers. And at the end of Season 14, he announced that he was stepping away from Red vs. Blue to focus all of his attention on Rooster Teeth's new flagship series. This announcement made all of Season 14's peculiarities snap into sharp focus. Season 14 was, at its core, a collection of audition tapes for the show's next head writer. Luna's replacement was eventually announced to be independent filmmaker Joe Nicolosi, not to be confused with Joseph Nicolosi, the crackpot psychologist who advocated for conversion therapy and founded Narth. Fuck that guy. Joe wrote and directed the 5th episode of Season 14, The Brick Gulch Chronicles. The premise is clever, the writing is charming, and most of the jokes land. My only conceivable grievance with it is, how did this kid come into the possession of that much hydrochloric acid? This episode highlights Joe's strengths as a writer. Fun situational comedy, and well-balanced character dynamics. The entire show is predicated on this kind of writing, so hiring him makes perfect sense. Regardless of my opinions of the seasons he wrote, I like Joe Nicolosi a lot. He's a fellow fan, and he most certainly did not deserve any of the death threats he received for his work on the show. Red vs. Blue has been passed around like a hot potato these past few years. Shows like Ruby, Camp, and the mother of all money wasters, Genlock, received the bulk of Rooster Teeth's attention and advertising. But Joe genuinely wanted to write this show, and anyone who is willing to accept responsibility for a series they didn't create has my full respect. With all that being said, Joe Nicolosi wrote some of the worst seasons of Red vs. Blue to date.
The Reds and Blues have struck again. And cut.
Season 15 aired from April 2nd, 2017 to August 20th of the same year. It was advertised as a standalone, self-contained story that would be told in a total of 21 episodes, which is mostly true. Joe plants a few seeds for future plot points in the Shizno Paradox arc, but none of them are prevalent enough to be considered crucial connective tissue. Paradoxically, this is one of the longest seasons of Red vs. Blue, clocking in with a runtime of 225 minutes. But the story is extremely rushed because the average duration of Red vs. Blue episode is less than 10 minutes. Despite the fact that this video is divided up into distinguishable sections, most of Season 15's problems can't be addressed individually. Much like an unsolved Rubik's Cube, these issues are muddled and intertwined with one another. To understand and address a single issue is to stumble across other intrinsic flaws. For example, a bloated cast of characters is exacerbated by the formula break of trying to create a standalone season, which necessitates a longer runtime, but more time allows for plot cul-de-sacs to develop and break the narrative's pacing. So, what's wrong with Red vs. Blue Season 15? Kind of everything. The story's basic premise is, in essence, the original sin here. Amazon's description of the Blu-ray disc is as follows. A series of violent attacks across human space has people demanding answers. Who are these Reds and Blues? And why are they so bloody ruthless? Bloody ruthless? Did Gavin write this? Oh, never mind. One reporter sets out to uncover the truth, determined to find out why the once beloved Reds and Blues have turned so malicious, taking her on a galaxy-spanning adventure filled with many twists and turns. If this premise sounds familiar to you, it's because Halo 5's marketing tried to sell a similar story, with promotional material like the Hunt the Truth podcasts and those advertisements that positioned Locke and Chief against each other in an attempt to create doubt within the audience regarding their favorite protagonist's allegiance. A premise like this is fairly compelling. The viewer isn't sure what the truth is, and they need to tune in if they want to learn what happened. But Halo 5 sucked! In all seriousness, the story idea for Season 15 came from a scrapped plotline for RVB Season 2 that would have made Doc a hapless reporter instead of a hapless medic.
Your name is Doc. I'm not really comfortable with that. I'm not a doctor. I'm a medic. What's the difference? Well, a doctor cures people. The medic just makes them more comfortable while they die.
Miles Luna brought this to Joe's attention when he was looking for directions to take the story. This premise was likely even more tantalizing to Joe Nicolosi given the recent political events that brought the morality of the American press to the forefront of everyone's minds, which is a red flag if I ever saw one. He latched onto this concept and created the character Dylan Andrews, reporter extraordinaire and one of the main protagonists for Season 15. When I say created, I refer to the fleshing out of her character, because if you're a big enough fan of the show, then you know that Dylan Andrews was the author of the article Colorful Space Marines Stop Corruption, as shown in the last episode of Season 12. I applaud this attention to detail. That is all I will be applauding.
Oh, excuse me. I forgot who I was talking to. God's gift to journalism. Can we start over?
Dylan Andrews isn't really a character. She's a two-dimensional plot device designed to progress the narrative. And ironically enough, her relentless pursuit of the story is the only reason there's a story to tell. She's an ambitious and resourceful journalist whose confidence borders on arrogance, and this arrogance has a bit of a destructive streak. It gets her arrested, it drains money from the news outlet she works for, and it's implied to be the reason why her marriage is on the brink of collapse.
I need a favor, James. Between us. And no one else can know.
That's why you're calling. No, hi honey, how are the cats?
I'm sorry, it's urgent.
Are we still married?
Her relationship with her husband could have been a source of narrative stakes, a point of internal conflict for her as she throws herself into work to run away from her problems. But it's not. Hubby Boo is introduced in episode 4 and isn't mentioned again until the season finale when she finally calls him back. We don't even get to hear that phone call. We have to listen to a boring excerpt from her news article instead.
When I first described the Reds and Blues, I called them heroes. That may have been premature. What I've come to understand after spending time with them is they're more than that. They're stupid.
There are no scenes where Dylan longs to be with James again, no moments of regret regarding how their final conversation went. She says she needs time to think, then presumably ponders her predicament for the rest of the season, and comes to a conclusion off-screen. There was a solid foundation for Dylan's potential character arc. She has flaws, but her growth could have been one of the most compelling aspects of Season 15. But she doesn't change. She goes on a journey, meets some people, and writes her story. The end. There's nothing inherently wrong with static characters, but Dylan Andrews frustrates me because the narrative rewards her for not changing. She gets to keep her job and fixes her marriage despite the fact that she abandoned her husband to pursue a story that no one asked for, including her boss.
The Reds and Blues are old news anyway. People are bored of them. Why don't you do a story about those monster-fighting sexy teenagers? Yeah!
This is the most meta line ever. Of all time. Speaking of meta... Wait, no, not the character. I mean meta, as in... Oh, god damn it, Zuckerberg!
Jet fuel can't JFK the moon landing.
There are a lot of reasons to like the Red vs. Blue Ultimate Fan Guide, but pages 102 and 103 in particular became my best friends while writing this portion of the script. This is a count of all the pop culture references present in the series at the time of the book's publication, which was after the end of Season 13. If you add all these numbers up, you get a total of 141 references over the course of 13 seasons, which averages out to about 11 pop culture references per season. There's also a paragraph dedicated to counting how many times the fourth wall has been broken within the series. Of the 22 occurrences of this phenomenon, nearly 1/3 of the fourth wall breaks belong to Season 11.
As many great 21st century movie trailers once said, this is only the beginning.
I find this interesting because Season 11 was Miles Luna's first season as head writer, so it makes sense that he'd lean on other pieces of media and elements of metatextual humor to find his own voice as a writer. When used in moderation, pop culture references can be a lot of fun, and sometimes they actually enhance the story that's being told. But Joe Nicolosi redefines what going overboard with them looks like.
Estos son los viejas de la nave especial Lopez.
So, backtracking just a bit to the Reds and Blues.
Oh, there goes the Bechdel test.
You are really an AI?
Like HAL 9000? Whichever one of us passes out gets stuffed in a tauntaun.
Can it! This way!
Rosebud. done. Just a few more inquiries, ma'am.
And then Griff convinced Simmons Game of Thrones really happened.
Nuh-uh. Uh-huh.
Okay, I know I sound like a broken record, but you definitely should have been— Would you shut up about the leaf on the wind shit?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Should we win today, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day the world stood up in one voice and said, "You may take our lives, but you'll never take our truth. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." 2nd place, set of steak knives. 3rd place, martini. Shaken, not stirred.
Good. That was great take.
He's dead, Jim. You're a wizard, Harry. You lucky punk. Say what again? Over the line. Hasta la vista. A great big bushy beard. This is my boomstick. How am I doing?
I think we're losing the thread.
I can't even give you a definitive tally because every time I've rewatched the season, I keep noticing more. It's definitely upwards of 40.
Damsels and Wolves, City Slingers, Predator, Laser Team 2!
Those are just titles.
I don't need a definitive count to prove my point, though. It's lazy writing to depend this heavily on other shows and movies for your comedy. A key attribute to Red vs. Blue's longevity as a series is rooted in the show's timeless and original humor.
Where's the patient?
Well, she's about 50 yards behind you and 6 feet straight down.
Oh.
Another problem with referencing so many other pieces of media is that it breaks the audience's immersion. You're constantly being reminded that you could be watching something else, something much better than Red vs. Blue Season 15. If you spend too much time trying to break the fourth wall, you tend to neglect the construction of the other 3. And make no mistake, the walls here are definitely neglected.
I don't want to insult your intelligence by explaining every little detail.
I know for a fact the 8 people currently subscribed to me haven't watched Red vs. Blue, so I'm going to try my best and recap Season 15's story events so that whenever I get into more specific details later on, we're all working with the same information. Sound good? Sure it does. You're still watching. Okay. After the events of Season 13, the Reds and Blues have supposedly become violent terrorists. Most members of the media assume that they're acting on behalf of a free chorus, but there is no proof for this assumption. Make note that the first image of this season is a ticking clock. It's a motif that's unfortunately important. The only reporter still invested in their story is Dylan Andrews, who breaks into the Reds and Blues' latest crime scene alongside her cameraman, Frank, to get the scoop. But before they can finish their work, the duo is arrested. After Dylan's boss bails them out of jail, she begs him to let her write an expose on the Reds and Blues. Grumpy McBossypants eventually concedes to her request so long as Dylan adheres to some strict regulations. She does not adhere to any of these strict regulations. Episodes 2, 3, and 4 are essentially a soft recap of the series thus far, with Dylan and her new cameraman, Jax, visiting some of the show's most iconic locations, such as Blood Gulch, Sidewinder, and Chorus to interact with fan-favorite side characters like Sister, Dr. Gray, and the Lieutenants so she can learn more about the Reds and Blues. Though she doesn't learn much about our favorite colorful space marines, she does obtain Vic and agrees to put him out of his misery if he grants her 3 wishes.
You want out of the computer?
No way, dude. I just need you to reach back behind me here and go ahead and pull that plug. I'd do it myself, but I ain't got no hands.
While searching the wreckage of the Mother of Invention, Dylan discovers that all the former freelancers are either dead or missing before she and Jax encounter the quote-unquote Reds and Blues. She correctly deduces that these terrorists are actually imposters, though her logic is faulty.
Their weapons were all wrong, for starters. And Tucker's never held a sniper rifle in any records I've found.
Man, I hate that I never get the fucking sniper rifle. Oh, hell yes. Alright, fine, here. Oh, kick ass. Okay, no, wait. How do I zoom?
Eager to discover the rest of the story, Dylan and Jax hightail it to Chorus only to discover that the UNSC has ordered a blockade. I actually really like the idea of the UNSC and Chorus being at odds with one another. The people of Chorus spent years trying to contact the outside world for help, but when they're finally rediscovered by the government that forgot them, that same inept government wants to reimpose its authority. This blockade is an obstacle that feels diegetic to Red vs. Blue's universe. If Dylan and Jax want to finish their story, they'll have to figure out how to navigate a complex political situation. Except, they don't. Episode 4 starts with them already on the planet! What was the point of establishing a blockade if these morons can just go in and out without any struggle whatsoever? Was it to piss me off? I think it was to piss me off. Anyway, Dylan shoots Jax in the butt and lands an interview with President Vanessa Kimball, who gives her the Reds and Blues' current coordinates, as well as a message to deliver to them that Chorus intercepted. Our hapless reporters make their way across the galaxy, and this happens.
Ah! Who are you?
I would like to point out that this episode came out long before The Last Jedi ever hit theaters, and it is the only pop culture reference in this season that actually aged better upon rewatching it. Turns out our lovable dumbasses have been up to the same old malarkey. Sarge fell into a mild depression due to him having no enemy to fight, Donut became an accidental arsonist twice, Caboose befriended some dinosaurs, Tucker, Griff, and Carolina formed a band, and Wash grew a beard.
It's kind of itchy.
I personally would have loved a season focused on following these dumb antics. Ever since The Recollection, fans' expectations for this series have changed. If an episode doesn't have a dramatic or dynamic fight scene, then it's not considered good. Season 11 is pretty solid, but because it came after something as epic as Season 10, people say that it's too much like the Blood Gulch Chronicles, which is a fairly weird critique considering that this show wouldn't exist without the Blood Gulch Chronicles. It's okay for a story to be simple with lower stakes, especially if there are other narrative strengths on display. These antics are dumb fun, but they're also distractions, coping mechanisms for their grief over the loss of Church. Speaking of Church, the characters listen to the message Kimball sent with Dylan, and what a surprise! It's from Church! He's back from the dead! Again!
God fucking damn it.
Almost everyone is eager to rush to Church's aid, with the exception of Griff, who decides to quit, much to Simmons' dismay. Wash and Carolina split off from the main group to see what their former freelancer associates know, while everyone else heads off to find the transmission's source. After a very dumb plot cul-de-sac, which I'll elaborate upon later, the main group finally meets their doppelgangers, who call themselves the Blues and the Reds. Their names are Temple, Loco, Bucky, no, not that Bucky, Lorenzo, Surge, Cronut, and Gene. Get it? Gene Simmons? Yeah, I didn't laugh either. Temple claims that the UNSC is hunting down and killing all former members of Project Freelancer, including simulation troopers. So they take the Reds and Blues to their underwater base where they're supposedly hidden from government detection thanks to a cloaking device that Loco built. Spoiler alert, it is not a cloaking device. Wash and Carolina investigate an abandoned island that apparently belongs to the never-before-seen or mentioned Agent Illinois. Joe Nicolosi desperately wants you to care about this guy.
Illinois was always different. He wasn't ambitious or competitive like the rest of us. He didn't fight for an AI or screw over his friends to get placed higher in the rankings. Instead, he was doing a job and dreaming of the life after. Of an island chain that stretched around an entire planet. A shack by the water with a bar full of spiced rum and a tiny red sailboat.
We do not care.
I didn't realize you two were close.
We weren't. He and York were drinking buddies, though.
You liked York. Like this guy, too.
It doesn't work like that.
Wash correctly deduces that Illinois was tracked down through his recovery beacon, a piece of equipment that's unique to all Project Freelancer suits of armor. He also assumes that they haven't been found yet because he turned off their beacons, which I would believe if it weren't for the fact that Carolina's current armor didn't come from Project Freelancer. She stole it off a space pirate back in Season 12. Major continuity error aside, they reactivate their beacons and the whole ass rainbow comes to pick them up. When they return to the underwater lair, Temple separates Carolina and Wash from the rest of the group and imprisons them using the armor lock mechanism that was established back in Season 8. This isn't a shocking twist since the Blues and Reds murdered dozens of innocents in the first scene of the season, but I have 3 problems with this scene. Number 1, Temple's abysmal monologue.
I killed them. I murdered them. I set my vengeance free upon them, and it felt so good.
Number 2, Carolina. Honey, you have a ranged weapon. Why are you getting into a fighting stance? Just shoot him! Number 3, Temple implies that Carolina should recognize him, which is dumb for reasons I'll explain in a minute. I will concede that the concept of this scene is effectively horrifying. Wash and Carolina are prisoners in their own bodies, surrounded by the corpses of their former friends. That's hardcore.
Meanwhile,
Dylan decides she wants to be relevant to the plot again and discovers the truth of their situation. Episodes 12 and 13 serve as expository, and they are easily the worst things this season has to offer. Apparently, Agents Tex and Carolina were deployed to the Blues and Reds Canyon between seasons 9 and 10 and were forced to play a game of capture the flag. During a skirmish, their Griff counterpart, Biff, died due to the freelancer's carelessness. Blah 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 vengeance quest, blah blah blah, the government must pay. Dylan and Jax are taken prisoner and their disappearance raises red flags for Tucker. Not Wash and Carolina's disappearances. Dylan and Jax's. I just think that's interesting. He confronts Temple alongside Simmons, Caboose, Lopez, and Donut, but they're taken prisoner after Doc and Sarge betray them. If you're wondering where the hell Doc came from, don't worry, it doesn't matter. They manage to send Lopez's head into space to search for help just before they're captured, though. They also learn that Church's message was fake. Their friend is really gone for good this time.
Send help, please. I need a plumber. Fuck, and some goddamn new recruits too, because I'm about to murder these two.
Lopez finds help in the form of Locus, whose return is just so underwhelming. The two pick up a slightly insane Griff and successfully free everyone, but before they can escape, a mega-delirious Wash gets shot in the neck in a scene straight out of a Joss Whedon property. Locus leaves the plot just as quickly as he re-entered it to rush Wash to the nearest hospital because in the Red vs. Blue universe, taking bullets to the throat is never fatal. Everyone sulks for a hot minute before realizing that the Blues and Reds' plan is to attack Earth. They rush to save the planet from being destroyed by what they now believe to be a drill built by Loco. Spoiler alert, it is not a drill. As they storm the enemy fortress, one of Dylan's co-workers calls her to tell her that Loco's machine is in fact a fully operational time machine that could tear apart the fabric of reality.
God damn it!
Whoa, are you okay?
I'm great!
Most of the Blues and Reds are killed off or captured as our protagonists make their way to the device, but they fail to turn it off. The resulting scene is Caboose getting to say goodbye to Church, Vic sacrificing himself to save everyone, and the cast staring off into the sunset before the credits mercifully begin to roll.
Hard to believe this all really happened.
It's all true, every single word, for the most part.
And women's suffrage! We've suffered long enough!
Before I continue, I think it's important to point out the things I enjoyed because the season isn't holistically awful. I really liked this joke in the first episode.
I'm going to be a botanist.
Botanist, huh? Well, I've never much trusted robots myself, but that's just because I grew up in the South.
I like the production's creative use of a green screen for stuff like Dylan's interviews and Simmons firing the Warthog turret. It's also really refreshing to have plot lines dedicated to developing members of the Red Team, so kudos there, Joe. The voice acting is solid from almost every member of the cast. I particularly enjoy the fact that Miles Luna voices Cronut. Back in Season 11, Luna had to provide the voice for Donut during the episode SOS because Dan Godwin wasn't available.
It's an emergency!
Blackhawk down!
Code red!
What, like a whitish red?
Donut, is that you?
Sarge? Oh, hey, guys! What have you all been up to?
We're stranded in the middle of the jungle with dwindling food and limited supplies.
That sucks. No shit, dickhead!
Most fans didn't even notice the change between Luna and Godwin's performances, so having Miles voice the doppelganger is a fun nod to an otherwise innocuous piece of trivia. My favorite moment by far, though, is the scene between Dylan and Dr. Gray. Every second of their interaction is solid gold. Dr. Gray's blunt psychosis throws Dylan completely off balance because she's not willing to put up with any of Dylan's bullshit.
When I said criminals, I wasn't referring to the Reds and the Blues. I was referring to you.
Beg pardon?
You and the press. By continuing to insinuate that those criminals are somehow our insurgents, a baseless accusation the UNSC was quick to overreact to. But I'm sure invasions make for a great news day.
She calls her a vulture, a creature that does not make the kill for itself, but still feels entitled to feed on the deceased's remains. Dylan's colleagues created a narrative that damaged Chorus's people, and she's not wrong in viewing that as a criminal offense. If there were more scenes like this in Season 15, I wouldn't have been motivated to make this video, because this is an excellent piece of writing from Joe Nicolosi. But alas, this video exists. So let's get into the nitty-gritty stuff.
My name is Spencer Porkinsensen, and I live to serve.
This might seem like a weird place to start the deconstruction, but the fact that I've managed to talk this long without mentioning Spencer speaks volumes to this screenplay's inefficiency. If you can thoroughly summarize the entire plot of your story without mentioning a character, that character either needs to be cut or reworked into the story to serve a more prominent narrative function. Authors can make their novels as long as they want, but screenwriting demands tighter writing because every minute of screen time is precious. Spencer Porkinsensen should have been one of the first things cut from the script during the editing process, because he is both the setup and the punchline of a really bad joke that's designed to waste the audience's time. Spencer appears in episodes 2, 3, and 7. His introductory scene is shot and directed in such a way that implies he'll be a serious antagonist going forward. If the intense music and slow pan up the cliff aren't enough to convince you, Spencer's introduction perfectly mirrors Locus and the Metaverse scenes in Red vs. Blue. In episode 3, it's revealed that Spencer's main target is Tucker, and he isn't seen again until the episode Nightmare on Planet Evil. Turns out he's just a process server who's been tracking Tucker down to serve him with a class action lawsuit because he hasn't paid any child support for the dozens of children he sired on Chorus after activating the Temple of Procreation to celebrate the defeat of Malcolm Hargrove. And this subplot was written for the only black character in the main cast.
Well, knock the black right off you.
That's racist.
Joe clearly wanted to subvert the audience's expectations here, but this whole bit just falls flat for me. Spencer Porkinsensen is emblematic of one of Season 15's biggest issues, metafiction.
So I have been cutting them up into nice little shorty shorts, 5 minutes each. Perfecto for watching just a little bit at a time.
Metafiction is a form of fiction which emphasizes its own constructedness in a way that continually reminds the audience to be aware that they are reading or viewing a fictional work. The live-action Disney remakes are good examples of what metafiction can look like. These movies are all hyper-aware of their statuses as remakes, and the scripts go out of their way to point out things they're fixing from the original film.
Actually, Romeo and Juliet's my favorite play.
Why is that not a surprise?
It's like the writer is repeatedly hitting you in the head with a sledgehammer. And in the case of Red vs. Blue Season 15, that sledgehammer is Jax Jones.
You know, I think I'll probably move to LA, but that's like what everyone does. I mean, what do you think? Do I really have to live there to make movies? What I really want to do is direct blockbusters.
His only purpose is to infuse every scene with self-aware, fourth-wall-breaking humor that isn't particularly funny, which is a problem since he's supposed to provide comic relief. The funniest scene he's in is his introduction, and it's not because of anything he says, it's because of what that scene implies. If you'll recall, I mentioned at the beginning of Part 6 that Dylan's original cameraman was named Frank. So when Episode 2 starts, both Dylan and the audience are operating under the presumption that Frank is the cameraman who's following her to the Blood Gulch bases.
Straighten your shit out, Frank.
I'm not Frank. Frank quit.
He what?
He quit. He said he was sick of getting arrested and shot at.
Frank apparently quit after the two of them got arrested, and Dylan didn't even realize she was traveling with someone else. She doesn't even recognize the obvious differences between Frank and Jax's voices when Jax starts talking to her. That's hilariously rude. Jax is also really bad at his job. I don't have a point here, he's just an awful cameraman.
I'm gonna draw their fire. You try and get a good look at the shooters. Ready? Did you get them?
No! I tried to snap zoom, but I missed my focus!
You're going to get us killed!
Perhaps the worst thing about Jax is his end credit scene where he pitches this season's events to a movie producer.
I took some dramatic license with the movie references, fudged a few plot points here and there, but that's the gist of it, you know?
This scene implies that everything we just saw was from Jax's perspective. A perspective that is, from his own admission, completely unreliable. And I could go on about how that wastes the audience's time and it's kind of insulting, but all I have to say to that is, at least Jax isn't this season's only unreliable narrator.
Oh, cool. Foreshadowing.
We call ourselves the Blues and Reds.
Terrible name.
I am but a shadowy version of you. It would take but a nudge to push you, to make you like me, to push you from the light. And I thought, okay, cool, who are the shadowy versions of the Reds and Blues?
Nice.
And what made them fall from the light? And what can our characters learn from these shadowy versions of themselves?
The Blues and Reds aren't characters. They're caricatures that are supposed to be a twisted mirror image of what the Reds and Blues could have been if they'd rejected their call to action at the end of Season 8. These characters more than double the cast size, so by the time the Blues and Reds are introduced, Joe Nicolosi has to juggle the burden of 19 major players. Even the most experienced writers would agree that's a serious undertaking. At least Halo 5's bloated cast had Nathan Fillion in it. The Blues and Reds are an interesting concept on paper, but the idea is fundamentally flawed.
I was just telling Simmons and Donut, your reporter friend, that I've known these guys for years.
Don't you find it weird that they're like, I don't know, bootleg versions of us?
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, it's actually vice versa. Like, they're the originals, and you're the crappy copy. What? Yeah, they're the real McCoys, and you are the non-McCoy. Fake. They are like iPods, and you are like Zoom.
Before watching the scene, I just assumed Doc died, and after watching the scene, I wished Doc had died. Because this is the worst twist ever. Of all time. Because now, our main characters are just a simulation of a simulation. The best way to explain why this twist is so insulting is to analyze another one of Doc's terrible lines from this season.
Tucker, I am the only person within 1,000 miles with any medical knowledge whatsoever. Now, it's not much, and I'd honestly feel much more comfortable if there was someone besides me who knew what they were doing. And it's been a while since I've actually practiced, and come to think of it, this is not really a medical device, it's actually an alien pistol.
Okay.
It's been a medical scanner for 14 seasons. Why now do you feel the need to poke fun at it? This joke may seem harmless on the surface, but it retroactively makes everything we've watched thus far pointless. The call to action Joe Nicolosi is referring to wasn't a matter of good versus evil in Season 8. It was a major turning point in the series because, for the first time, these characters chose to be here. They stopped letting the universe dictate their course of action and embraced their camaraderie. Ignoring this call to action wouldn't have made them violent terrorists. They would have just stopped hanging out together. I also can't take the Blues and Reds backstory seriously. They have a right to be angry with the government. They have a right to be angry with Project Freelancer. But the bulk of their indignant rage is directed towards Carolina. And to say that this season's writing did Carolina dirty would be a gross understatement.
I wish you could have learned to let things go. I guess I should too.
Remember how I said Miles Luna used story elements from seasons 9 and 10 to build narrative crutches? Keeping in line with that metaphor, Joe Nicolosi built a wheelchair, shoved Wash and Carolina into that seat, and sent them careening down Mount Everest for season 15. All of Red vs. Blues writers post-Bernie Burns pull what I like to call the Carolina card. If they need to inject cheap tension into the story, they throw that burden onto her. Miles Luna did it by bringing Sharkface back from the dead, Joe Nicolosi does it by retroactively making her responsible for the Blues and Reds' tragic backstories, and Jason Waite does it by having Carolina fight her former self in a labyrinth to prove how much she's grown. That is somehow not the weirdest thing to happen in Season 17. The Carolina card is like a cheat code. A series of buttons for the writers to push if they want the audience to get invested in an otherwise uninteresting plot. Agent Carolina, like most all freelancers, is a fan-favorite character, so putting her through the ringer emotionally and physically is a writing shortcut. Writing drama is hard. Rehashing a popular character's emotional beats is easy. Lazy, but easy. These writers aren't developing her character, they're just butchering her past the point of recognition. The freelancers aren't just fan favorites because they're badasses. They're beloved because they wear their humanity on their sleeves. By the time we get their backstories in seasons 9 and 10, they're all long dead, but we still get emotionally attached to them despite knowing this because we get to see their faces, learn their desires, and feel their pain. Bernie used these seasons to enrich their deaths with nuance and a heightened sense of tragedy. They all died because they never learned from their fatal mistakes. North was too trusting, South was too selfish, York had physical and emotional blind spots, and CT, well, actually, CT's death wasn't her fault, but you get my point. Wash and Carolina are the only freelancers left standing because they are the only ones who grew out of their habitual flaws. Wash learned to put his faith into other people again, and Carolina learned how to recontextualize her trauma and move on, something her own father was incapable of doing. It's a beautiful character arc, but each time the Carolina card is used, this arc becomes less and less impactful.
Sometimes I think York was my chance at a fresh start. I threw it down an elevator shaft.
I'm not a fan of nitpicking, but she didn't throw him. She kicked him. And he didn't go down. He went up.
I have to do this. Do you have anything to say to fans of Wash and Carolina?
Sorry?
Red vs. Blues new writers don't focus on Carolina because she needs to grow. They focus on her because they want as many poorly animated fight scenes as possible.
All right, men, new plan. Let those two pummel each other to death.
Red vs. Blues fight scenes haven't been good since Monty left the production after season 10 to create Ruby. And Ruby's fight scenes haven't been good since Monty tragically passed away between volumes 2 and 3.
The idea is to utilize motion in a way where you don't waste movements.
So much wasted movement. If you want a more in-depth look at the animation's fall from grace, I suggest watching Brown Table's video on the topic. I'll leave a link to it in the description. My interest in this subject is how these fight scenes don't work on a narrative level. When you juxtapose this with this, it's hard to stay immersed and invested because these can't possibly be the same characters. The choreography is so bad that it makes you distrust the information a scene is trying to convey. I am convinced Temple is an unreliable narrator because this...
No! Medic! Somebody help me!
is too stupid to be what actually happened that day. The flagpole is blunt. The force of Tex's throw would have decreased exponentially after Carolina deflected it. He was wearing high-tech super armor! I don't even like science, but I am offended on physics' behalf.
So you're in? Way I see it, it's my job to shoot you anyway. Hey, they might give me a medal for this.
That's the spirit, all right. So, brass tacks, my pinky finger, I need you to shoot it off, all right? I've thought about it a lot, and that's going to be my best bet.
Done. Dude, are you sure? I'm a terrible shot.
Come on, dude, hurry.
I can't do it. Look, you're just going to have to serve out your tour like the rest of us.
I think Temple just missed the shot at point-blank range and blamed it on the freelancers. Carolina has no memory of this incident, and none of the other Blues and Reds saw what happened. And there's this weird moment from the finale which basically confirms my theory.
What's the matter, Temple? Afraid of blood?
Shut up!
My headcanon doesn't fix the problems with this scene, though. It just makes them slightly more potable.
But the morals make no sense! It's totally bogus.
This season's main theme is actually stated in the first line of dialogue, and it's restated a couple of other times by other minor characters like Dr. Gray and Dylan's work associate.
Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
I am prepared to deal with the consequences.
Consequences don't always take the shape we expect them to, do they? They're funny like that.
I didn't mean to. I meant to. I want to. I didn't mean to.
Intention is no matter. Only consequence has true form.
The bigger problem is Newton.
Care to elaborate?
Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The law of consequences. You can't steal energy from the past without the energy coming back to haunt you.
Here's the thing, though. Newton's third law of physics isn't a literary theme. It's just how plot works. Events should cause other events. Thing happens, other thing happens as a result. That is fiction writing 101. Furthermore, characters who deserve to be scrutinized by this thematic lens aren't actually analyzed by the text itself. Everything that happens this season is the result of Dylan seeking out the Reds and Blues. She calls them to action and sends our protagonists hurtling into the fray, and they suffer permanent personal losses as the result of her ego.
I hope we didn't fuck something up.
Yes, Dylan. Yes, you did.
Blues, let's light the fires and kick the tires.
Reds, let's dance with these monkeys and give them what for.
Blues, let's put the pedal to the metal and the rubber to the road.
Reds, let's get jiggy with it. No.
The Reds and Blues may be the main characters, but they're definitely an afterthought this season. Out of the core 7, I'm only going to discuss Sarge, Griff, Tucker, and Caboose in depth because they receive the most narrative attention this season. Donut and Lopez barely have anything to do, and Simmons is only contextualized through his interactions with Griff. Griff's arc is easily the best of the 4 because his response to this season's call to action is the most relatable. I, too, got really angry at the prospect of Church coming back from the dead again. Jeff Ramsey knocks it out of the park with his performance, especially during the scene with the volleyballs.
Hey, we know you assholes stole our tank. Now you gotta give it back. Look who finally showed up. You're too late, Griff. It's over. What's over?
He's dead. My best friend is dead. Purple pineapple, random nonsense.
That's meta humor done right. In fact, Griff quitting the team is actually really interesting on a metatextual level. He and the other members of Red Team have been dragged across the galaxy because of Blue Team's drama, and after 13 seasons, he's had enough. If only Rooster Teeth agreed with him.
Desertion means leaving the military, not eating dessert. Seriously, Griff, turn around.
I love how you can feel the emotion of this shot despite the fact that we can't see Simmons' face. What I don't love is all the unnecessary queerbaiting.
Well, I'm glad you're back. It's good to see you too. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see you. Yeah. Dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Don't mind me. I'm just getting in position for the kiss.
What happened to him?
He slipped.
This is by no means a new development. There have been moments sprinkled throughout the show that have hinted at something deeper regarding Griff and Simmons' relationship.
Hey man, I've been trying to get you on the radio for 10 minutes. What's going on? Sorry man, I'm still picking up the Reds transmissions from when we broadcast that Lopez song. There's a lot of chatter. Well, are you at least getting any useful information? Nah, it's just the same two guys bickering like an old married couple. I've only been listening for like 5 minutes and I can already tell they're really in love. Why can't they see?
What were you doing parked in the shade for 2 hours?
Well, I can tell you what we weren't doing.
Ready weapon!
Griff, this looks like it's it. Listen, there's something I always wanted to tell you.
I have something I want to say to you too, buddy.
You first.
Ready!
It was me that stole your identity and ran up all those credit card charges at the pawn shops and peep shows.
There's also this soundbite from an interview with Jeff Ramsey.
Is there anything that most people would not know about Griff?
He likes long walks on the beach, and he is secretly in love with Simmons.
It's the video description that kills me. There's something distinctly different about this season's treatment of the subtext, though.
Chorus has this alien relic called the Temple of Procreation that when activated makes...
We said we wouldn't talk about that!
Oh, they just upset because they got locked in the storage closet during the whole thing.
The subject. Change it.
I believe the subtext here is rapidly becoming text.
You're 15 seasons into this series. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain if you make them canon. Their relationship is already a piece of the narrative's heart, and it would have been a fresh formula break for the series. Sometimes it pays to be courageous.
Why are we here?
What?
I said, why are we here? Answer me now.
Because we need to stop these evil fucks, that's why. No, we don't know why we're here. It's still one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? Ow! Ah!
Sarge's character arc is the equivalent of a midlife crisis.
I am hopelessly depressed after not dying heroically on chorus. We need a new enemy, something to fight.
After spending so many years in the military, he desperately needs an external conflict like war to function as a person. Sarge even betrays his friends for a hot second to follow warfare where it leads, only for him to change his mind 2 episodes later.
Pretty please with a cherry on top. Tell the guys this was my plan all along. Oh, have mercy.
There's also a pointless joke about figuring out his real name, which, for me, falls under the same umbrella as the plasma pistol joke from earlier.
How do you even spell it? It sounded like 57 syllables.
Well, you need a Mandarin keyboard to get it exactly right, and the 5th letter is an emoji.
No one asked for this. Tucker spends most of this season acting like an impulsive bastard.
Oh, big surprise. You guys haven't figured out what's going on yet. Score another for Team Tucker.
He really came into his own during the Chorus trilogy after showing signs of potential in seasons 7, 8, and 10, but he regresses tremendously with Joe Nicolosi at the helm. Hell, Tucker himself points out how poorly he's written.
What's gotten into you, man? I'm a fuck-up as what? Just when I thought I was getting good at this hero stuff, I crashed and fucking burned. I'm a... what's the word? Liability.
The most interesting aspect of Tucker's characterization is his relationship with Caboose. When the Blues and Reds imprison them, Temple scolds Tucker for letting Caboose operate with such a misinformed perception of death, as if Tucker is responsible for Caboose's naivete.
Stop it. But I don't want to. Maybe if you all didn't treat him like some big baby, he would understand something as simple as death, as dying and being gone forever.
There's a scene from Nightmare on Planet Evil that I've yet to mention.
What was this place?
It's a human settlement before the alien war. A horrible massacre. No survivors.
That must have made so many ghosts.
Well, scientifically speaking, there's no such thing as ghosts.
But what happened to you when you died?
Yeah, we just don't know. Probably nothing.
What you said makes no sense. If people don't turn into ghosts when they die, how do they come back?
You don't.
Maybe no one cared about these people. So that's why they haven't come back.
I don't think caring is part of it at all, Caboose.
Well, Tibbet, here's what I've learned. I care about Church, and he comes back every time.
That's how it works then.
I don't know, Caboose. That's an interesting theory, but I wouldn't put too much weight on it. Most times when you die, you die. It doesn't matter how much someone likes you or how little or how not at all, you know, even after being friends for years and years.
You take it back, Griff.
No!
Ha!
Gay!
People die without warning every day. That's just a sad fact of life. To quote Ian Martin, we real people don't always get catharsis, aren't allowed proper anesthesia and rehabilitation from emotional wounds. Instead, our hearts scab over and scar, beholden the time's demand of always moving forward. I've been working on this video since 2019. I've spent more time editing this script than God spent creating the universe. And the reason it's taking me so long to finish is because I'm very good at talking myself out of making the things I'm passionate about. I'm ultimately glad it's taken me 3 years to finish this review, because the original draft of this script was written in a rage-induced haze. The pop culture references made me angry. The wasted potential made me angry. And Caboose getting to say goodbye to church due to some zany time travel hijinks made me angriest of all.
There's a lot of things I never got to say, and I know I won't get another chance to say them, so... I think you are cool. Like super awesome, amazing cool. And I always felt like really awesome too when we were hanging out together. You know, I never really felt sad when you died because...
What do you mean when I died?
I never felt sad when you died because I couldn't imagine a world without you. But I know it's real. I know. And I'm sad. Things really aren't okay without you. But I know with my other friends, who even if you add them all up together, aren't really as cool as you, I know we're all gonna be okay.
Closure is hard to find. Our ache for finality and resolution is so often denied because, as BoJack Horseman points out, there's always more show. It's so hard to let things go, but after all these years, I finally understand Joe's choice to let Caboose find peace, because this video has been my way of finding my own. It's not perfect, but it exists, and I'm proud that it exists. Red vs. Blue used to be one of my favorite shows, and it's been heartbreaking to watch this series steadily decline in quality. My anger with season 15 stemmed from an immense love for the characters and story. I want this show to be good again, but it probably never will be. And at long last, I've made my peace with that reality. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate it. This project is well out of the wheelhouse for my usual content, but I'm glad I made it. My original vision for this channel was to make videos like this, scathing critiques fueled by passionate rage, but I found I'm more fond of meeting pieces of media where they're at these days. Nothing I've covered on this channel is perfect. Actually, that's a lie. Arcane is damn near flawless. But my point is, this will probably be the only video of its kind that I'll make, but if you enjoyed watching it, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing, or giving my other videos a shot. I'd like to think my other content, though comparably succinct, is just as engaging, if not more so. I can't promise that my next video will be anywhere close to this extensive, but I can promise you tireless effort, interesting topics, and outdated memes. Take care.